initially withdraw this memo and make it clear that this is not only unacceptable, but that it is an absolute violation of the First Amendment that every American enjoys under the Constitution of the United States?
If I'm confirmed, Senator, yes.
Will you also commit to me that you will conduct an investigation and find out who wrote this memo, who spread this memo, the field offices involved in this memo? Because I can tell you, your predecessor sit right where you're sitting, and he has repeatedly lied to, there's no other word for it, lied to this committee. He told us initially that it didn't happen, that the FBI didn't make any lists of churches. That's not true. We have it. A whistleblower brought forward the list for us. He said then that only one field office had worked on it. Turns out we know from another whistleblower, multiple field offices worked on it. He said that it was never posted on the internal system. It turns out it was. We believe it's still in effect. Will you find out who was involved in this gross abuse of Americans' First Amendment rights? And will you discipline them? And if you possibly can, will you fire them, Mr. Patel, consistent with department policy and law?
Senator, you have my commitment to investigate any matters such as this one that are important to Congress. I will fully utilize, if confirmed, the investigative powers of the FBI to give you the information you require, and also to hold those accountable for violating the sacred trust placed in the FBI.
I'm sorry. If you guys don't understand what what's happening right now, I'll bring you up to speed. Kash Patel is literally dedicating his allegiance far past Donald Trump. His allegiance is actually to the United States and the Constitution. His focus is going to actually be on real justice. What they're in a roundabout way saying is, will you go after those who created the lists, those who went against our Constitution, targeted people based on all these superficial things like their religion, and also if they were a straight white male? The same people who actually went against the Constitution and went after a former sitting president, Donald Trump. He's basically in a roundabout way announcing that there can be an arrest potentially of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. They have okay, listen, when they arrested Donald Trump over paperwork with no actual real charges, they set a new precedent. We're at a time in history where anything goes. The gloves are off. They should have thought about the fact that whatever you're going to do to us, we're going to eventually be able to do to you. The way it works is that you teach people how to treat you. The last 4 years, what has the left taught those of us on the right? What have they taught those of us who were patriots, who love our country? They basically told us that anything you do that is pro-America is anti-them and their agenda. Right now, you see so much with these protests, and you're wondering, why are you so mad that we are auditing the government? I thought the Democrats were the party of accountability. I remember when the Democrats were screaming at the top of their lungs, show me your taxes. You would have thought you were at spring break looking at someone saying, show me your tits. But they offered Trump no beads, but they wanted them tits. Now we're actually auditing the government because we're all about fiscal and financial accountability, right? And literally right now, Maxine Waters from one of the most failed districts in the entire country is outside of these different buildings screaming to be let in. But you weren't screaming to be let in a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 years ago. You didn't care about none of these places. You didn't care about where the money was going. All you cared about was your kickbacks. And you're being kicked back from the people getting bigger kickbacks, and they expect you to go ahead and put yourself in the front line and do the job. So you represent them because they're in the shadows. Publicly, we don't know their names. With these forensic audits, God willing, we will. Let's get back to the hearing.
Glad to hear you say that, and I'm glad you use the word sacred trust, because that's exactly what it is. The FBI is the most powerful law enforcement body in this nation, arguably the most powerful law enforcement body at least in a free nation in the world. And to have this body corrupted politically such that it is targeting people of faith in this country and then lying about it to this committee and the American people is unimaginable. I'll be honest with you. I never thought this would happen in the United States of America. I just didn't. If you had told me 5 years ago we'd be reading memos like this, I would have said, no way, that's bad fiction. In fact, it's a horrible reality. The department needs to be cleaned up, the agency does, and rights restored and protected. I'm glad to hear you say that. Let me ask you this. Do you think it is appropriate for the FBI to be sending agents, including counterterrorism agents, to the parents of children who went to school board meetings and asked about critical race theory in their schools, asked about the school's masking policy during COVID? Should those parents be treated as domestic terrorists?
Parents who have the courage to ensure their children are taught what they feel is right, and those who have the courage of their convictions to go houses of worship, in my book, will never be domestic terrorists.
I'm delighted to hear you say that. You're familiar, I am sure, with this memorandum issued by the Attorney General, the last Attorney General, Merrick Garland, directing the FBI and other law enforcement agencies to look into parents who went to these school board meetings. And we know from whistleblowers who come forward to this committee and given us the evidence that in fact the FBI opened multiple cases against multiple parents across the nation, I believe including in my home state of Missouri. Another gross abuse, incredible political power brought to bear against everyday citizens. Why? Because they went to a school board meeting that they're paying for and asked about what their kids were being taught.
If you guys want more context, let me break it down for you. Loudoun County in DC and these other counties, they actually called the FBI to come investigate parents who were showing up to school board meetings. Why were the parents showing up to school board meetings? Well, there was an influx of pushing gay and trans ideology on the children via books. Also, there were kids with mental illness that were boys going into girls' locker rooms and women's spaces. And actually, some kids, unfortunately, were assaulted and raped. And school boards were hiding it from the parents because the offender was a part of the protected class of trans kids. Remember, the goal is not just to make your kid gay. The goal is to confuse your kid to the point where they think that they're non-binary or they're trans, or because the bigger goal is for eventually your child to self-delete and take themselves out in a few more years. There is a depopulation agenda. It's primarily focused at the Black community, but if there are eggs that need to be cracked to create this, proverbial omelet, which means kids from other backgrounds, then so be it. They have to lower the population. Remember, if your kid is non-binary and trans, no matter what you want to call them, you will never have to worry about them calling you a grandparent. That's the end of your lineage. That's the end of the entitlement for freedom, sovereignty, everything that Constitution that makes the globalists and people around the world envy us so much that they hate us. The things that make that Constitution tick, you won't have to worry about anymore because they will no longer be here. You will not have access to it because the kids are the future. If they can get rid of your kids, well, then there is no one else for them to fear. And this globalist takeover will be a lot easier. That's why these parents are showing up to these schools. They found out that the gay and trans stuff was literally being introduced to them. They changed the rules so that teachers can actually anybody at the school can actually talk to your kid about sex now. When I was in school, that was unheard of. I never even knew my teacher's first name. Now you know your teacher's first name, last name, sexual kinks, what they did last weekend, you know, about their dating life, their wedding life, you know, about their sex life. All these things are new. Only since the Biden administration took over in 2020, 2021. Parents found out about it, and they put these parents on terror watch lists and tried to arrest some of them just for showing up to protests at these school board meetings. This is what this man here is talking about. Remember, the people that you're seeing protest against this, the people that you're seeing that hate Trump and all that, go look at their family life. They don't have one. Most of them are gay. They don't have children. They hate children. They don't believe in families. They don't believe in fathers. You have to look at the people that are doing the hollering. Now you are gonna see some. You're gonna be like, well, that guy has kids, but he has something wrong with him also. If you're a man with children, but you support people that want to mutilate children and touch children and do things to children, but you're like, well, I'm a part of the cult, the Democrat cult, so I have to support it regardless. I can't all of a sudden become a Trump supporter just because I don't like pedophiles. That is a weird, very weird hill to die on. So that's a very and it's unfortunate. I know some guys that I know in my personal life, friends of mine's on Facebook, probably going to watch this video. I've tagged them in videos. These are men with children who support mutilating children, who support sexualizing children, men who have daughters. You know, these are not men. I'll tell these men to their face. I just haven't seen them since all this stuff. You think I knew these men had these beliefs in their heart when last time I saw them in person? Hell no, I would have brought it up. You're going to have to explain to me how you can support sexualizing children and child mutilation. You're going to have to talk to me about this. You know, we're going to have this conversation in person. You know, on the internet, it gets a little tricky. Can't get that tricky in person. So that's why you're going to see these men, actual men. You can tell they're visibly upset when they're talking about it, but there's hope because they're going to do something about it.
Once again, I can't imagine. I couldn't have ever thought this would happen in the United States of America. Will you find out who was involved in this policy within the FBI? Who agreed with it? Who implemented it? Who encouraged it? Will you find out that, Mr. Patel? Will you do an internal investigation? And will you make clear that those who supported this policy are appropriately disciplined? And will you make clear that the FBI will never do something like this again?
If confirmed and pursuant to your congressional request, absolutely, Senator.
Thank you. Let me ask you this. Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to target people of faith, particularly those who hold pro-life convictions? Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to single out and target people of faith in order to discourage the exercise of their First Amendment rights?
There can never be a targeting by law enforcement just based on their people's faiths.
And yet, under this last administration, the FBI and DOJ together brought numerous prosecutions under the FACE Act for nonviolent protests. President Trump has recently pardoned some of these folks, but it also includes individuals like Mark Houck from Philadelphia region, from Pennsylvania, who had an FBI SWAT team arrive at his door in the early hours of the morning, armed, of course, terrorizing him and his children, took him into custody. They charged him with a FACE Act violation. Why? Because he took his young son to a peaceful demonstration outside an abortion clinic. When his young son was shoved to the ground, he defended him. Mark Houck was acquitted by a jury, acquitted. Nevertheless, the FBI used their full resources, including a SWAT team, to try and terrorize him. Meanwhile, how many churches that were firebombed or pregnancy care centers that were firebombed, how many of them were protected by the last administration? Just about zero. It is an unbelievable instance of targeting. Mr. Patel, will you end this targeting? If you get to the FBI, if you are confirmed, will you end it? And will you make clear to all agency personnel that there can be no targeting on the basis of religious belief, and this will never happen again in the United States of America, at least not under your watch?
Senator, if confirmed, and this speaks to an issue we were talking about earlier, there will be no such targeting if I'm confirmed as FBI director. And the resources of the FBI, which are funded by the American taxpayer dollars, the 7 minutes that you and I have been talking about, 2 people have died from fentanyl overdoses. 1 person has been shot to death in this country, and 3 people have been raped. The resources of the FBI will go to that mission set and that mission set alone, because America deserves a better brand of justice, and I'm going to give it to them.
Fantastic. Here's my last question for you. Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to try and pressure the largest technology corporations in the world, the most powerful corporations in the world, social media companies? Do you think it's appropriate for the FBI to pressure them to censor the political speech of everyday American citizens to try and violate the First Amendment? Is that appropriate, do you think, Mr. Patel?
No, Senator.
Will you put an end to this, Mr. Patel, if you are confirmed at the FBI?
Senator, confirmed, I will work with Congress to expose any corrupt activities the FBI has participated in, especially involved in the censorship of free speech.
Because we know from the court cases that have been brought across this country, and we know from the voluminous factual finding that was done, and it's in the record, that the FBI and other agencies of this government under the last administration pressured, coerced these social media companies to censor speech of everyday Americans on a range of issues, from the Hunter Biden laptop to COVID, to the Dobbs decision, you name it, they tried to censor them. The Constitution doesn't permit the government to do it. The FBI tried to get the social media companies to do it. Will you end this practice, Mr.?
They didn't just try to get social media companies to do it. They did it. I'm an example. I had, I don't know how many thousands of followers, YouTube, Instagram, my Facebook alone. I had it for 12 years. Never been a political person. I just post party videos, me going out, I had like some little dating show I was on. I was, doing different things, but I shared, just data from the Frontline Doctors of America, articles written by physicians in other parts of the world. And I kept getting these 30-day bans because I was just asking questions and just sharing articles. And I remember in 2020, I shared the Hunter Biden laptop from the, I believe it was the New York Post story. And they literally nuked my Facebook page. 12 years of content, material, friends, pictures, family pictures that I only saved on Facebook. It was kind of like my online journal. Gone. I had no backup. Everything wiped, right? All because I shared exactly what our senator right here is actually talking about. I shared literally what he said, stuff about COVID, Hunter Biden, how the masks don't make sense and all this other stuff. But also I talked about, it was just weird to me, the weird trans stuff, but it was so new. I didn't think it was, I didn't know how big and widespread it was because I'm an adult. I didn't know that it was really targeted towards kids. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and bring this up too. Like for example, and this is on the Post Millennium website. Trans sanctuary states, Minnesota and California, want to defy Trump's orders preventing males from women's sports. And look, Washington State vows to fight Trump executive orders protecting women's sports. Why do they want men in women's sports so damn bad? I mean, that's really something that we have to talk about. But it's not really in adult sports. You don't see, there are biological men pretending to be women that are in the WNBA. It's just not something that's talked about openly. But we've seen the videos. We know who's who. It's just not something that people want to talk about because, again, it's a protected class. But when it comes to schools and kids are a little bit less forgiving, and they're actually with each other in person every day. A lot of us are just talking about stuff we see online or we see on TV. With kids, it's different. So now you want to encourage mentally ill boys to go into locker rooms and change clothes with girls. Why do you want that so bad? But then you look at it, who are the people that are behind it? These are men who are behind it, who are perverts, who are PDF files into children. They believe that children can be sexual. They adhere to John Money's psychology about how children are sexual from birth. You don't know this because you have never talked to these people. You support it because they're Democrats, you're Democrats. Do you really hate white people? Because you hate Trump because you hate white people. You don't like any white people. So if you hate Trump, let's be honest. And if you can get over the racist stuff, well, then now once you remove race, then nothing on the Democrat side makes sense. The trans stuff, the gay stuff, the communist stuff, the censorship stuff. You're like, wait a minute. All that was, I was only supporting all that because I was, I had some kind of envy and evil jealousy of white people and I hated them so much. Once you get over that, because I've seen people that have gotten over that and they've changed. They've become a different person. If you can get over that, then you can look at things for what they really are. And you're like, this stuff is sick. And for me, I have to talk to people who are in my circles yeah, I have I have a small following on between my social media sites, but at least it's an accurate following. If they keep my videos up without getting them taken down every day, people comment and we get a lot of exposure, and people understand how important it is to speak out. Right now, we're depending on the government and government officials like him to speak out and to speak up for us. But as a parent, it's your job to defend your kids. If you're not going crazy because they want to put a big ass strong boy, 16 years old, playing sports against your 14-year-old daughter, and they just put lipstick on them and a wig, and they tell them to go out there. If that's going to be the case, if these states are defending women's sports by adding men to them, if they're fighting against removing men from women's sports, then there are no women's sports. Well, if you don't want women to have sports, just say that. Fine. Because there's no sports women are going to dominate men in unless childbirthing becomes a sport. And I'll be honest with you, if you're in California, that might not be something that women can say that they dominate anymore. Honestly, if you ask those people, I would know that. I'm from California. I seen them start talking crazy and I left. Had to. So yeah, it seems like these states are a part of a bigger agenda. They do not want women in sports. And the way you do that is you just take men who can't compete against other men, but that will dominate women, and you just inject them onto these teams. In my opinion, they should just have a separate trans league in the schools where all the trans kids compete against each other. Why is it always one way? You never see women fighting to go use the men's restroom. Because even if you can put those hormones in your body and grow a beard, even if you can get your forearm shaved off, right? That's what they do. They shave the skin off your forearm or off your thigh, and then they roll it up like a fruit roll-up made out of salami, okay? And then they paste it between your legs. And then you walk around and you think you have a functioning penis, but it doesn't work. It's just a facade. It's fake. It's a fugazi. And you never see them, even with they can grow the beard and wear the trucker hats, you don't see them fighting to go into the men's room because if a man notices and feels some type of way, you're still a woman. You'll still get your ass kicked. And there's really not much you can do about it except call one of these pro-Trump, straight white men police officer that you pretend that you hate so much and beg one of them to come help you or defend you or protect you. But a man pretending to be a woman, it's less likely a woman's going to be able to defend herself against him. So he can kind of just go into these spaces and dominate. And besides another man coming along, there's nobody that can stop him. We're bringing common sense back to our society and to see that there are people looking to inject boys and men into women's sports, and because it starts here and it goes into other things. It's insane. And there's people literally protesting against stopping this. They want biological men in women's sports. Why? We'll read this article in a second. Let's finish listen to a little bit of Kash Patel's hearing. I wanted you to hear the part where he was basically saying that Biden and Harris can be arrested, but they can't. Listen to his language, listen to what they're talking about. That's what they're saying in a roundabout way.
Patel once and for all.
Senator, I will always follow the law.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal's next. I want to say when he's done, so let's see, that 30-minute break was taken about 12:25.
This is the thing. That was actually the best part. And this is actually from earlier. The laws that were broken by Harris and Biden, now that we know that you can go after a sitting president, I don't know why anybody would expect anything less. It would only be fair that they are arrested. For one thing, human smuggling. Why is it that if me, as a regular guy, right, if I go down to the Mexican border and I pick up some people that are across illegally and I offer to drive them to Tucson or to Phoenix or to Brownsville or wherever, how is it that I'll be arrested and charged with human smuggling and trafficking. But if Biden or someone with orders from Biden goes down to the border and they have buses and they pick up thousands of people every day and they're moving them to red areas in the middle of the country, trying to just for the purpose of turning a red area purple or blue, with direct orders from the president and the vice president, who was the border czar. Why is it that a regular person like myself can be arrested and charged, but not the government officials? Are they not also Americans? Are they above the law? Are the rest of us below the law? We're beneath them. We're beneath the law, so laws apply to us, but not to them. No, that's not how it's going to work. They arrested Trump and charged him for paperwork, and I had literal people on my Facebook, lots of black people, talking about, oh, he's a felon. So, well, I'm a felon. So if they're going to let him be president, then I should be able to get a job at a bank. No, poor little tink Tyrone. You're a felon because you were caught with drugs and you were also doing home invasion robberies. You had a assault with a deadly weapons charge. You can't compare those types of charges as a felon to where trumped up charges that are not even really misdemeanors, but they said we're going to charge him as a felon because paperwork was paperwork that he didn't have to fill out himself because he's not his own lawyer, but he miscategorized his paperwork for checks, which is not even really a crime, but really they're only able to charge you as a felony if they're saying that what you did was in furtherance of another crime. So when they ask, okay, cool, you want to charge him as a felon, what was the other crime that this was in furtherance of? And Alvin Bragg says, I got to get back to you. We don't know. And you think that's the same as what you got caught doing and why you're a felon? You're an idiot. Yeah, that's it. I mean, if you think about it, what he was charged as a felon and what you were charged for as a felon are two different categories of crimes. His is not really a crime. So he was not but he wasn't even above that. So you think Biden and Harris, I don't care how old Biden is, Harris is young enough to be charged. You know, I remember back during the BLM riots, and she did a fundraiser to get people out of jail that were arrested for literally burning down cities. I'm never going to forget May 29th when President Trump, at the time, they were, I remember watching these articles, they called him the bunker boy because he was forced to go into the bunker of the White House because a bunch of gay white people call themselves Antifa and a bunch of misguided, Black Lives Matter people. You know what's funny? The Black Lives Matter, black people that go to these rallies, they show up and do all that dumb shit for free. Now we're finding out that the Antifa protesters, they were getting paid to be there. The ones in Black Bloc, they weren't spending their own money to go buy black gloves and black boots. No. The black people are so emotional and ridiculous that they'll go out there and risk their lives and their freedoms on the house for free for causes that have nothing to do with them. But these other protesters that are there using them and using their bodies as cannon fodder, right? They're being paid to be there. It's all just a scam. It's all a hustle. It's all just, it's just all fake nonsense. And now we're finding out that these are all paid activists this whole time. None of this was real. But you see, what we're doing now with bringing back law and order, this is real. No one's paying me to be here and to talk to people. I could be doing something else. Once I'm done making videos for today, I'm going to be doing other stuff. But there are people who are paid to say things that don't make sense. And they're just hoping that they can influence you to having bad views or bad opinions and to just not care about what's happening to your own children. You know it works because you got more and more women coming out saying, my 1-year-old baby is trans. My 8-month-old kid just told me he wants his testicles removed and he wants to wear a bonnet and wear a strawberry sherbet diaper. No, your kid didn't. But it just shows you the strength of propaganda and proximity. I have an episode coming up about book burning. It's actually going to be the next live that I do in about 20 minutes. A lot of it's going to be based on stuff like this right here. In my daddy's belly, right? When I talk about influencing people, I'm a person of a strong mind, but I was also a part of that anti-Trump cult when I was in California because I wasn't paying attention. So apparently propaganda can work on the best of us. You just have to know how to identify it and understand it and what's happening. When I talk about burning books, these are the books I talk about burning. In my opinion, these books should have never been printed in the first place. But if you want to print them, then I have to burn them. But it's not just this. There's an entire library about it. But then there's also huge campaigns from the other protected class to push for these types of books to be in school, to confuse your kids. If it can confuse a mother and make her want to sacrifice her son, because really it's really for boys. They don't really do this to the girls that often. And turn her son into a woman or a pretend daughter, knowing that once he grows up and matures, he's going to be so embarrassed about what he did, he's going to self-delete, likely in his 20s, but it's always before they turn 34. You don't really meet many of them that make it past that age for some reason. And if it can work on an adult woman, what do you think it's going to have an effect on your child when they're giving these books out? If you look at the size of the book, look at the colors, this is made for a child anywhere from, I will say, 2 to 6 years old. 2 to 6. So I'll be back on shortly. We'll talk about protecting kids and how disgusting all this weird stuff is. But I'm very grateful that someone like Kash Patel, who is going to hold these people accountable, is likely going to be confirmed. And all these other men understand how important it is for the role he's going to take. Do me a favor, like and subscribe to the page if you're watching this on Instagram or on YouTube or on X, Twitter. Like and subscribe to the page so you can see the next video that's going to be coming out about book burning and the origin stories of why they want you to think it's such a bad thing. But it's not, because it's a necessary thing. And hopefully one day we won't have to burn books no more because they won't print certain types of books anymore. You know, because we do have laws. Grooming is a law. I mean, there's laws against grooming. There's laws against, targeting kids. I remember back when they blocked Joe Camel from being the cool cartoon camel with a jacket on because it said it targeted kids and made them want to smoke cigarettes. Now you're overtly putting books in schools that's telling kids about anal and how to, do all this sick oral stuff. These are things that I can't even talk about on YouTube, but your kid can read it in school. But if I read that same book on YouTube on an episode that I'm doing, because right now this is a safe and effective podcast. If I read some sentences from one of these books, they literally strike me and kick me off. But not in real life and not with your kid. They won't do anything. So anyway, like and subscribe. Come back in a few minutes. We're going to talk about book burning. And we'll, I appreciate you guys being here. Like I said, I don't have a huge audience, but it's my audience, people that follow me, people that I know personally. People think it's funny that I'm actually making these type of videos and talking to a camera, and I'm actually doing interviews, and I'm just doing it just because I feel like, there's other people in the space that make these videos, but I just feel like there's too much stuff that they miss, being that everybody talks about the same topics a lot of times because, you kind of make a segment based off of a news article and it's 15 to 20 minutes and you have to talk about certain topics, but it's the spaces that are in between that people don't want to bring up and go over or waste their time with. I will waste my time doing it. I'll do it. I'll talk about it, and we'll see how far this goes. I'm independent. I have a couple of sponsors that, I do ad reads for. Cosigning.com is one of them. Table for Two. It's a food app that's going to be coming out. I'm actually doing an ad read for them. We're working on the contract right now. So please, support our sponsors. And support the videos, share them, like, subscribe, and I will be back shortly. Thank you. And remember, America first. Fuck Klaus Schwab and go to hell to the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization. We know what you did last summer.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.